Good evening, Dr. Oom. Good evening, friends. We are from Group 2, consists of Berlina, Sukma, Sophie, and myself, Hertin. We share regarding critical discourse analysis, or CDA. There are so many references we can get concerning CDA. However, CDA data we shared here mostly refer to Professor Norman Fairclough as the founder of CDA. There are hundreds of pages explaining about CDA, but we only took part of them. In linguistics, discourse refers to a unit of language longer than a single sentence. The word discourse is derived from the Latin prefix dis, meaning away, and the root word carere, meaning to run. Discourse analysis is analysis of text structure above the sentence, based on Sinclair and Coulthard, 1975. Discourse is use of language seen as a form of social practice, and discourse analysis is analysis of how texts work within socio-cultural practice. Analysis requires attention to textual form, structure, and organization at all levels: phonological, grammatical, lexical, and higher levels of textual organization in terms of exchange systems, structures of argumentation, and generic structures. A working assumption is that any level of organization may be relevant to critical and ideological analysis. Some approaches to critical discourse analysis, by contrast, have tended to focus just on particular levels, e.g., grammar and lexis in critical linguistics, lexical semantics in earlier French discourse analysis. The next slide will be shared by Siti Sophia. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Ms. Hertin. Now I am Siti Sophia. I would like to continue our presentation. Fairclough reformulate here that discourse analysis is not a level of analysis as a phonology or lexical grammar, but an exploration of how texts at all levels work within sociocultural practices. This, taken with the acknowledged difficulty of undertaking collaborative interdisciplinary research, suggests that Norman Fairclough's consistent emphasis on the need for critical discourse analysis to establish a viable research methodology is both cautionary and well judged. Critical discourse analysis is concerned how power is exercised through language. Critical discourse analysis is an interdisciplinary approach to the study of discourse that uses language as form of social practice. He creates three dimensions such as text, discursive practice, and social practice models. The next slide is a wide variety of theories ranging from microsociological perspective based on Ron's Collin to theories on society and power in Michel Foucault's tradition, theories of social cognition and grammar, as well as individual concepts that are borrowed from large theoretical traditions. In particular, the emphasis is on the mediation between grand theories as applied to society at large and concrete instances of social interaction the foci of analysis for CDA. As far as methodology is concerned, there are several perspectives within CDA. In addition to those which can be described primarily as variations from hermeneutic, one finds interpretative perspective with various emphases, among them even quantitative procedures. In empirical social research, a distinction can be made between elicitation and evaluation methods, between ways of collecting data based in the laboratory or by fieldwork, and procedures that have been developed for the analysis of collected data. Methodological procedure for the collection of data organize observation, while evaluation method regulate the transformation of data into information and further restrict the opportunities for inference and interpretation. The distinction between these two types of data collection and analysis doesn't necessarily mean that there are two separate steps. CDA sees itself more in the tradition of grounded theory based on Glaser and Strauss in 1967, where data collection is not past that must be finished before analysis, or that must be finished before analysis starts, but may be permanently ongoing procedures. The next slide will be shared by Miss Berlina Sihombing.
Thank you, Miss Siti Sophia. I'm Berlina Dewi. I'd like to continue the next slide about how to conduct discourse analysis. There are many different approaches and techniques you can use to conduct discourse analysis, but the steps below outline the basic steps you need to follow. Step 1. Define the research question and select the content of analysis. To do discourse analysis, you begin with a clearly defined research question. Once you have developed your question, select a range of material that is appropriate to answer it. Now, step 2. Gather information and theory on the context. Next, you must establish the social and historical context in which the material was produced and intended to be received. Gather factual details of when and where the content was created, who the author is, who published it, and whom it was disseminated to. Step 3. Analyze the content for the themes and patterns. This step involves closely examining various elements of the material, such as words, sentences, paragraphs, and overall structure, and relating them to attributes, themes, and patterns relevant to your research question. Step 4. Review your results and draw conclusions. Once you have assigned particular attributes to elements of the material, reflect on your results to examine the function and meaning of the language used. Here, you will consider your analysis in relation to the broader context that you established earlier to draw conclusions that answer your research question. It is an approach which is suitable for use in the sort of research into social and cultural change. What in particular makes it suitable for such work is that it foregrounds links between social practice and language, and the systematic investigation of connections between the nature of social processes and properties of language text. I use text for the language product of discursive processes, whether it be a written or spoken language. A spoken text can of course be turned into a written text by being transcribed. It also facilitates the integration of microanalysis of discourse and macroanalysis, including analysis of language policy and planning. It is moreover a critical approach to discourse analysis in the sense that it sets out to make visible through analysis and to criticize connection between properties of text and social processes and relations, ideologies, power relations, which are generally not obvious to people who produce and interpret those texts and whose effectiveness depends upon this opacity. Alright, thank you friends. The next slide will be presented by our friend Mrs. Sukmawati. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. Now it's my turn, Sukmawati, to tell you about critical and descriptive goals in discourse analysis. According to the Fairclough, critical and descriptive goal in discourse analysis distinguishes critical discourse analysis from the dominant non-critical descriptive trend within discourse analysis, which was establishing itself within linguistic department at the time. The latter is criticized for its lack of concern with explanation, with how discourse practices are socially shaped or their social effect. There is also a criticism about the concept of background knowledge as an obfuscation of ideological processes in discourse. The preoccupation with goals is based upon an attainability theory of the subject, and the neglect of relations of power manifested, for instance, in the elevation of conversation between equals to the status of an idealized archetype for linguistic interaction in general. It is argued that the orderliness of interactions depends in part upon such naturalized ideologies. To denaturalize them is the objective of a discourse analysis which adopts critical goals. It was suggested that denaturalization involves showing how social structures determine properties of discourse, and how discourse in turn determines social structures. This requires a global, macro or micro explanatory framework which contrasts with the non-explanatory or only locally explanatory framework of descriptive work in discourse analysis. It is include a criticized feature of such work which follow from its limited explanatory goals, and discuss the social condition under which critical discourse analysis might be an effective practice of intervention and a significant element in mother tongue education. In terms of descriptive, primarily to characterize approaches to discourse analysis whose goals are either non-explanatory or explanatory within local limits. The objective of non-explanatory it is to describe without explaining. If, for example, a speaker in some interactions uses consistently indirect form of request, one point this out without looking for causes, where goals are explanatory but local. Causes are looked for in the immediate situation. The next slide is about example of conversation based on Fairclough. The example is an extract from a consultation between a doctor, a general practitioner in a British medical system, and his female patient. there is a sign of pause. A dot indicates a short pause, a dash, a longer pause, and overlap are shown by breaks. The text is categorized by a configuration of heterogeneous and contradictory properties. This illustrates that in terms of a contrast between a fact of certain occurrences and their manner of occurrences. On the one hand, the fact of the occurrence of this doctor's question about whether the patient, she is an alcoholic, has started drinking again by saying, Are you back? Are you back on it? Have you started drinking again? Which breaks topic and which is repeated as a check. Oh, you haven't. And the fact of the occurrence of the doctor assessment of the advice the patient has received, I think that's wise. And the doctor's directive to the patient to see him again. Well, look, I'd like to keep seeing hearing how these are going from time to time, if that's possible. On the other hand, the manner of this contribution from the doctor's question both in is working, the vague initial formulation, are you back on it, and the formulation, have you started drinking again, and in a strictly quiet and fast delivery, which I haven't tried to represent, which give this as a presumably vital medical question the appearance of an insight, and the assessment, which include an explicit subjective modality marker, I think, which modulated its authoritativeness, and the directive, which is extremely tentative, and indirect. That is our group presentation. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.